What GROW gives young people is a sense of competence in addressing trying situations. It gives them strategies for problem solving. It promotes their resilience in terms of, okay, I can deal with this situation. I know I have the skills to deal with the situation by focusing on the outcomes I really want to achieve. Here's what I have to do in the here and now in order to achieve these desired outcomes, and how to be a contributing, productive member of a group. And these are important skills that young people not necessarily pick up on their own. Is what we need today to do today is to create a conspiracy on behalf of children. The large problem is that in previous generations, information would get to children after it's been sort of mediated by important adults in their life. Today, children are able to access information directly. And there is a difference we're seeing in terms of the relationships that form via digital media and in person. These kinds of divides and changes in society are impacting how young people are learning and development. And what we need to do is recognize that, where things they might have picked up. You know, years ago we used to talk about school climate, that children would catch a climate in a school about what's appropriate behavior, what's inappropriate behavior. We're no longer seeing that that's the case. We have to be much more intentional. And I think that's what I see in GROW, is the intentionality to talk about certain issues and to raise their attention. The issue is we want young people to think all the time, to pay attention all the time. You know, we would want to have a big sign as they're walking everywhere saying, think about your actions, think about the consequences, think about the type of person you want to become. However, to think all the time takes a lot of cognitive energy. And so the most effective method is to habituate that. And so it becomes, in a way, second nature, by having young people and their families create a conspiracy on behalf of children with a unified message that's coherent and consistent. And they come into the GROW session and they're able to try it out. And during the session, the focus can be on what they should be paying attention to, what they should be thinking about. But afterwards, we need to help them, and this is where families are important and their teachers are important and everyone in their lives is important, is to habituate it so it becomes very second nature. And I think this is the reason, in my mind, why GROW merits national and international attention, is because of the cutting edge approach that GROW uses. For example, we try to teach character development in schools and we tend to fail because we focus on the virtue of the week. And we say, okay, here's this virtue, let's call it tzedakah. And we talk about it and we describe it, but there's no conversation, okay? Because who's against tzedakah? What we have to do is make a virtue or a character a problem. What is the problem? What are the challenges? What are the choices that one may face when wrestling with this issue of tzedakah? This idea of making it a challenge, something that we really need to discuss. It's never an issue of, is this the right or is this the wrong way to go about it? There are two principles, and what we need to do is weigh which principle is operative at this particular moment. And that's the effective way to build young people's character. Show them what the problem is. Don't just give them the answer. And in so many of our books we have for children, they give them the answer without discussing what was the process by which this answer was arrived at. And I think that's what GROW is trying to do, is show them in a complex society with many different challenges and many different choices, See, what happens with young people when they have too many choices is that they tend to get numb. And they, in a way, they sort of close down and they stop thinking. Grow staff, what they do is help the students with their social competence during the conversation. One of our foundational studies was looking at student learning and looking at how they interact in the social arena. And we noticed that there was a strong relationship between the two. And the more that we looked at, we realized the same type of dealing with challenges, whether it's in academic learning or if it's dealing with a problem among other kids, it's the same skill set. First of all, it's by perseverance. It's by an understanding that a problem can be solved, but that you need to work together as a group to solve it. It can be solved. It's about realizing that just because I feel that I want to act in this way, once I'm part of a team, I need to modify how I act in order to be a member of that team. But most of all, it's about persistence. It's saying, here I am now, or here is our group right now. We're dealing with a trying situation, but we need to think about not only winning our argument right now, but think about the kinds of friendships that we want to have for years to come. Is that not only are they talking about a particular aspect of character, but they're working together and there's attention paid to how people interact with one another. And I think that is the most effective way to raise young Jewish kids with character. And the most effective way to help build young people's self-regulation, which we talked about earlier, is the foundation, the underlying approach of healthy child development and learning, is for them to belong to a group. Because part of belonging to a group requires the person to override self-absorbed behaviors, to adopt the norms of the group. This is how our group behaves. Here's how we act in our group. And if you want to be part of that group, you have to behave and act in a consistent way. And I think that by creating a youth group type of atmosphere at Grow, they're able to nurture that sense of belongingness, which is actually what young people crave for. They're yearning for it. And we're finding increasingly that young people are very lonely. And we walk into a cafeteria in a school and we see all these young people talking and we think that they naturally know how to socialize, so we don't need them to teach them that. But that's not true. We need to teach certain skill sets, and especially now that young people are increasingly communicating through digital means, the issue is even far more important to look at. So for example, if the two of us are talking, I could see how you respond. I could see you nodding. I could see how, whether what I'm saying is in any way hurtful to you. When you're writing an email, you don't know how the respondent perceives the email. Young people are becoming increasingly disconnected from groups. Part of it is in a complex society that there are many different groups with mutually exclusive demands. And people are increasingly taking on they're part of this group and that group and this group and that group, and so many different parts of themselves, but we don't see a wholeness in children. And so the only way to do that is to create what I refer to as a conspiracy on behalf of children. Having parents, educators, rabbis, everyone in their lives. One of the most interesting studies that we have done is that we've told students in schools to take a moment and count how many people in your life, how many adults, whether it could be at school, at home, in the community, how many adults care about you. And it was interesting to note that those students who had very few adults care about them had the most difficulty with self-regulation. They had the most difficulty in terms of academic achievement. They were not forming important relationships with adults and other kids their age. And the reverse was true for those who said that they have many adults in their lives who care about them. We asked the parents, where did they learn how to navigate in a complex society with many different choices? And they said it was all part of their growing up experiences at home with their family. Then when we asked them what they want the schools to promote, that was the number one thing. And it was interesting because even though they feel they got it from their families, they didn't feel that they were doing a really good job at passing it along to their children, so they wanted the help of the educators to do so. And I think GROW provides that opportunity for parents also to learn the language and the thoughts and the strategies for promoting their children's character, and they're not on their own in that regard. I could just tell you that I remember there were many times when my children were growing up where I benefited from having other people around who could tell me how to handle a particular situation. One time I went into my middle child's classroom and he was sitting all the way in the back by himself. And I asked the teacher why he's sitting all the way in the back on his own. And she said to me, because he likes it there. I said, okay. And I was talking to a colleague later in the day, and I was telling her this story, and she said to me, and she was a principal of a school, and she said to me, and you didn't ask her why he likes sitting by himself? Okay. And there were times it was just helpful to have somebody I could turn to and ask questions in a very easy, comfortable way. And I think what GROW offers parents is the opportunity to ask questions, to learn themselves what language they should use, how to confront children, because there are times when we need to confront them and say, no, this is not okay. This is really not acceptable, without it blowing up. One of the things that we're finding in society today is parents are giving too much control to their children. It's the difference between loving children and being in love with them. And that's our role as parents, is to say no. But just by saying no is often not enough. What parents need to do is help their children to develop the problem-solving skills and the capacity to cope with difficult situations and the underlying regulation of their emotions and their behavior. And that's what GROW offers parents, so they could see how educators are working with their children to promote these particular developmental aspects, and they can learn from it. I try to promote in my children the ability to make important and good decisions, but sometimes I feel like I'm doing it all on my own, and I need this for them to hear it in other settings, in other places, and also to hear it from educators. I see that sometimes my children have balanced development, that they're growing in every area, and sometimes I see that they, in terms of, let's say, the language development, is zooming ahead of the cognitive. So, but what's the point of being articulate if you have nothing to say? What's the point of being a bodybuilder if you walk by the stairs and don't take the laundry up the stairs? What's the point of saying you care about people and you're very attentive to people who are important to you, but the school secretary or the person who's cleaning the halls, you never even notice? And so I need help, because the children are not with me all the time. And I need to know that they're with other caring and competent adults who will promote the very same aspects of development that I want to do as well.